Alan Sills had the conference call today with the commissioner. Roger Goodell insists that the NFL can safely and responsibly complete the season. Yeah, can. Will is the other issue. And I think for as long as you are sending players and coaches out into the community every day, and as long as the numbers continue to go up and up and up in the community, that's where you run the risk of not just one or two guys testing positive inevitably, but 5 or 6 or 7 all at once. And then anyone they're in contact with being knocked out on the COVID-19 reserve list. And you're going to have more situations like we saw with the Denver Broncos where rosters are decimated. But I guess the NFL looks at it and says, hey, there's 53 guys on the active roster, 16 on the practice squad that could be called up at any time up to 90 minutes before kickoff. Should be more than enough. And I don't know what the critical mass is. I don't know how many guys have to be out before a team just can't play, but some would say, hey, as long as you got 11, you're good to go, right? In basketball, if they've only got 5 guys and one fouls out, they play with 4. So not that the NFL would ever come to 10 guys on the field, but I just sense that they are not going to worry about that. They expect guys to be ready to play. If they're not on the COVID-19 reserve list, they expect teams to be ready to play, and they're going to play these games.
Yeah, Mike, I was on the call, and that was my big takeaway from it. And Roger Goodell said that, you know, we're going to make these medical decisions over competitive reasons, over business interest, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to roll. And Alan Sills said, look, when a player tests positive, we don't consider him a player. We don't consider what position he plays. At that point, he's a patient. And they go into the high risk. They don't care what the position are. If you look at what colleges are doing, you know, they have these certain numbers that you were talking about that if they don't have a quarterback, if they don't have X number of offensive linemen, if they don't have X number of defensive linemen, I think those are the 3 positions, and they say we're not going to play. And if we don't have X number of total players, we're not going to play. And Roger Goodell said, look, we changed all the rules. The rosters are the practice squads are bigger. You can call those guys up. We did this for a reason. We don't care that you don't have a position group. Go play the game. We don't care what positions they are. We're going to get these games in, and you're going to have to play if you have enough players to put on the field. And we've seen that. We've seen that repeatedly with several teams. We've seen it with the 49ers earlier this year against the Packers. We've seen it with the Broncos with no quarterbacks. And we're seeing it today with the Ravens with what they're throwing out on the field. So that's exactly it, Mike. They're going to play the games. It doesn't matter. We don't know what that total number is. Maybe there's a total number, but goodness sakes, I mean, the Ravens still have 16 players on the COVID list, and they're playing this game, so I'm not sure how high the number goes.
And for anyone out there who, for some reason, is only watching us and not monitoring the game, they are now at halftime. The Steelers lead 12-7. The Ravens threw the ball into the end zone. Luke Wilson dropped what could have been a touchdown pass as time expired in the first half. So 12-7, no risk it, no biscuit. They risked that they got no biscuit at the end of the half. 12-7, the Steelers lead. The postseason bubble concept has been kicked around from time to time. And as I understand it, because we were doing Football Pod in America, so I missed the start of the conference call, and I didn't want to jump on late and make that beep-beep sound and distract everybody. The commissioner initially said all options are on the table for the postseason, but then said, Charean, that there won't be a postseason bubble. And here's my theory. There won't be a mandatory postseason bubble because you won't need a mandatory postseason bubble because the teams that are still alive in the postseason will do a voluntary bubble, and the team leaders, the players, the quarterbacks, the defensive leaders will all put the squeeze on the other players to volunteer to stay in a hotel for the balance of the season. This all gets back to collective bargaining. That is at the core of this. The league doesn't want to have to go to the union and ask for permission to make mandatory hotel stays because the union will say, wait a minute, you're asking for a lot here. You're asking to take guys away from their families for extended periods of time. Even if it's a postseason, you're knocking out guys for the 2 Super Bowl teams for a month from their family life. So the union would want something, justifiably so. It's part of the collective bargaining arrangement. The league doesn't want to give anything up. And some would say maybe they should. The league doesn't want to. So they're taking a risk here that some players will choose not to voluntarily bubble, and that could potentially screw things up. But the attitude will be the same that it was all year long. Hey, if you're positive, you're down, someone else is up, go play the games.
Mike, they really talked in circles on this issue. You know, at the beginning, Goodell did say all things are on the table. And then he said, we're not going. He said, it depends on what kind of bubble you're talking about. And what he said they're not definitely going to do is going to have a bubble like baseball did, where they put all teams at one site. And that makes perfect sense. I mean, you're not going to have that many teams at one site in the NFL. I get that, but I don't think they have definitely ruled out having bubbles in individual cities, local bubbles. And as you said, even if this isn't something that they do league-wide, we're going to see teams do it. We saw the Cowboys were among the teams, the Saints, in the training camp do this. And they had sort of the voluntary bubbles where the team leader said, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go stay in a hotel, and we're going to come out and we're just going to be on the field for training camp, and that's it. We're not going home. And I definitely think you're going to see that in the postseason. I think one question that hasn't been asked yet, Mike, what if we have a situation like the Ravens in the postseason? Like, how far are we going to kick the can down with a game where you're delaying the next week's set of games? That will be curious to me. But if you have these local bubbles, I think that you have less of a chance to do that. Less of a chance to have the big COVID outbreak where you are having to push a game back for almost a week, frankly. They're supposed to play Thanksgiving night.
Yeah, 6 days of a delay for this game, and that would wreak havoc on the postseason schedule. It would delay everyone, and the prospect of a Week 18 already creates the possibility that the one seeds in the two conferences will go 3 weeks between playing games. And the 49ers right now have a situation that could become a test case for a localized bubble. They're in Arizona. They're going to stay in Arizona. And there are coaches out there who are envious of what the 49ers have fallen into, because I know from talking to some coaches, they would much rather be away from home in a hotel, locked down, because then they don't have to worry about guys getting exposed to the virus away from the team. And that's exactly what the 49ers will be doing, everyone together for the foreseeable future. Although I guess there's a possibility guys can bring their families down, get an Airbnb, and go back and forth as if they're temporarily living in Arizona. I don't know how many guys are going to do that. I doubt the whole team would do that.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.